I was saying, Joy Taylor, every dog has its day. And since I'm a big dog, I've got 2 days.
Okay.
So now.
You just called yourself a dog?
Yeah, I'm a dog. Yeah, I'm a big dog, a big one.
Kevin Durant is 6'11", who can pull up from 40.
Okay.
This brother is on that level. I'm talking about offensively.
Do you think you're better than Jarrell Revis is right now?
I'm better than you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Lowdown podcast. I'm your host, Mark Brown. As always, this is episode 55, and I have a very special guest on the show today. And I had him on before, it's a few months back, and I decided to have him on again because I promised him I would get him back on. And I feel like now was the best time to get him on, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder beat writer for the Oklahoman, Joe Mussatto. Now, I had him on. We previewed the upcoming season this year, which is going on right now. And so far, our predictions could have been a little lopsided because we predicted that Oklahoma City wouldn't even be in the top 8, and right now they are standing at the 6th seed right now. Actually, it's really close between them and the Dallas Mavericks. So if you really look at it, the Rockets, the Thunder, and the Mavs are really close between the 5th, 6th, and 7th seed. I mentioned that before, and I know Joe covers them for a living. So, Joe, I just wanted to say, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much. So much has changed since the last time we spoke. You're right. I mean, I'm pretty sure I predicted the Thunder to not make the playoffs, and now I looked at ESPN's Basketball Power Index today, and they've got a 99.9% chance to make the playoffs. So that's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, it really is because, I read your article before I even called you, and they're 4.5 games ahead of the Memphis Grizzlies, and it looks like it'll stay that way. They just have to keep a steady pace. And right now, and then when it came to the NBA trade deadline, Oklahoma City did a great job by not getting too involved in it.
Yeah, you know, that was a big thing to watch because the trade deadline would have been the only thing to sort of dismantle this team. You know, they've got a lot. There was a lot of moving parts at the trade deadline. Some of the guys that they'll be looking to trade in the future, like Chris Paul, Steven Adams, maybe even Dennis Schroeder, there wasn't necessarily an urgency to trade them because they're still under contract. All of them at least through the end of next season. I think Chris Paul is still, you know, with as good as he's been, they're still going to listen to offers on him because he's got a very burdensome contract, but he's played very well. The one that was closest to being traded was Danilo Gallinari to the Miami Heat, but Gallinari and the Heat's representation couldn't work anything out, and he stays put in Oklahoma City. The roster stays intact, and the Thunder, the second half outlook looks very good.
Yeah, it really does because, I mean, they're starting off against Denver actually tomorrow night. That's going to be on ESPN, so that'll be a game to watch. And to see, like you said, the second half stretch, it does look pretty promising to them because they're playing teams that are not as top tier as during the first half. But Oklahoma City managed to take care of business this whole time. I got to give all credit to Sam Presti. He did an amazing job during the summertime, during the free agency and the trade deadline. That was probably the craziest trade I've ever seen in my life while watching basketball. One of the craziest trade seasons I've ever seen. Because knowing that they got rid of Westbrook and Paul George as a whole, I mean, and then for all these guaranteed first-round picks in the next few seasons is just incredible. I can see the Thunder, and then the way the Thunder is looking right now, the fact that they're in the top 6 in the Western Conference is just insane. And to see the way Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's been playing, he's been playing like a superstar this whole season.
Yeah, you know, when you look back at that Clippers-Thunder trade, you know, whether or not the Clippers are going to win an NBA championship with Paul George or not, like, it was worth them doing that. It was worth the Clippers going all in, getting Kawhi Leonard, teaming him up with Paul George. You don't want to part with a young guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but they were willing to do that to get Paul George. It was a win-now trade. But if you look at that from the other side, from the Thunder side, that's going to – I think it's going to go down as one of the best value trades of all time. I mean, getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander – Danilo Gallinari, Shai looks like he's on track to be an all-star someday. Made a second Rising Stars game. Gallinari is still a very good player at 31 years old. And then you get all of the draft picks on top of that. I mean, it'll take a few years to see what this trade looks like at the end. But for now, I don't think you can – it's got to be a win-win for both teams.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And then to add on to that, I mean, I know for a fact you watched the All-Star game. And to see Chris Paul the way he performed at 35 years old with those alley-oop dunks, I was insane. A lot of people. It's funny because for some reason, you know, a lot of fans that were watching didn't expect Chris Paul to actually have ups like that. But think about it. He's 6 feet tall, right? He's 6 feet tall at least, or at most. Who knows? Like, I know he's around there somewhere. And then Yeah, and if you're in the NBA, you should be able to have hops, man. I mean, if Nate Robinson can jump out of the bleachers, who's 3 to 4 inches shorter than
he's
Chris Paul.
34 though.
Yeah, but still, there's guys. The fact that if you're 6 feet tall, I just feel like that's an excuse. I feel like if you're 6 feet tall, you still should be able to dunk until you're like in your mid 40s or so. He does keep himself in good shape, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's in really some of the best shape of his life. He totally changed up his diet. He lost a little bit of weight. He's a guy who's had some major injury problems the last couple of years with the Rockets, but he's only missed one game this whole season, and that was for personal reasons. It was after Kobe's death. It wasn't even a health thing. So to see what he did in that All-Star game, if he would have hit a game-winning shot, I think he would have been named the MVP because he was 7 of 11 from 3. He had 23 points, and that was his All-Star career high in his 10th All-Star game, and then the dunk to top it off. So it was a pretty fun weekend.
Yeah, it really was. And then, so going off that article you wrote and going off how you've been covering them this whole time, how are you feeling leading? Not knowing. Obviously knowing that the trade deadline didn't really just dismantle the Thunder at all. It didn't really bother them or just do anything to them. It didn't really affect them. So, how do you feel about Oklahoma City in the second half? I know you were talking about how it seems pretty promising, but do you think they can really change it up a little bit? Because there's going to be a few games that are going to be really difficult, but it's going to be a quick 2 months. And how do you feel ultimately how the Thunder will perform starting tomorrow?
Yeah, so I looked at the schedule for a story today, looking at the rest of the season. They've got 27 games left. 15 of those are on the road. They've got the 6th toughest schedule left in the Western Conference, but it's about league average as far as the toughest. So not on an extreme end of either spectrum. So I sort of expect them to stay put. I think 6 or 7 seed is most likely. I would probably pick 7 if I had to guess. I think Dallas will finish ahead of them, Houston, Utah, the 2 LA teams, and Denver. And then, maybe Memphis is that 8 seed, but really the most interesting race in the West will be for that 8 seed. I know I don't want to get too off track since we're talking Thunder here, but you've got the Grizzlies who have a pretty comfortable lead at that 8 seed. They play the toughest schedule, though, left in the NBA. And then you've got New Orleans and Portland. They got 2 of the easiest schedules left. And I think those are contenders for the 8 seed. So I expect the Thunder to slide right ahead at the number 7 spot.
Yeah, I can see that happening too because I'm looking at the schedule right now for the remaining schedule for the Thunder. I don't see Houston on their schedule at all for the remaining of the season. I do not see
that. No Houston.
The teams I see now, they're going to be playing the Clippers more than once. I see that. That's going to be tough. And then I see the Lakers on there. They've struggled against the Lakers all season. And, pretty much everybody
The Nuggets are on there 3 times.
Yeah, that's going to be hard too. And then now San Antonio, they lost them previously, but I feel like they'll be able to beat them on Sunday. That shouldn't be an issue. And, the teams that I would be worried about, like you said, would be Denver, Clippers, Lakers. I would say the Bucks too. And,
at the Celtics.
Yeah, Celtics. And then, I'm looking at, Atlanta, not really. Brooklyn, no. Kyrie Irving's now officially out for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dallas too. I forgot about Dallas. Dallas is going to be a contender. But they don't. I'm looking at the schedule. I only see Dallas on here once, and that's the last game.
Yeah, that's right. So, there's definitely some winnable games on there. Also coupled with some very difficult games, especially in the division. When you've got Denver left 3 times, you've still got Utah left twice. And like you said, they start with Denver tomorrow night in Oklahoma City. So, it'll be interesting. I think the win total, the updated win total that was set in Vegas is around 46. And they're at 33 wins right now, which is already over their preseason over-under, which is pretty exceptional. Them and Memphis are the only teams to already surpass that preseason expectation. So some winnable games, definitely some losable games. But like I said, they're locked to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of seeding, and that could be anywhere between 5 and 7 probably.
Yeah, and honestly, I could see – it depends who they play, too, in the first round because that's going to be a hard prediction to make right now because, there's still plenty of games remaining and for both sides. And like you said, I could see the Trailblazers probably making a rally or against the Grizzlies for the AC because Portland has been, like you said, they have an easy schedule. They've been playing pretty well lately. It's just what really baffles me is – seeing the Warriors on the very bottom of the list. They're actually the worst team in the league right now. That really baffles me just to see that. Obviously due to injuries, you got Steph and Clay out for pretty much the whole season, and seeing D-Lo get traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I just don't see them resurrecting from this. And then there's no way. They're 30 games behind. There's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah, my only thing about the Warriors is just watch out next year when Steph and Clay are healthy again, and then they potentially could have the number one pick. They could add a guy like Anthony Edwards or James Wiseman, or they could package that and trade for another superstar. Wiggins is a bit of a project to try to resurrect his career, but that's going to be a fun team again. I think right at the top of the West next year.
Yeah, it does make sense because, like you said, you can't count out the Splash Brothers. I mean, if you did, that would be completely ridiculous. And just to see now, you look at the Eastern Conference. It looks like Milwaukee. Yeah, it looks like they sealed the deal, man. They're like 6.5 games ahead of the second seed with the Raptors, and it seems pretty close between the second seed down to the sixth seed. It's just within I wouldn't even say that. I would say the second seed to the fourth seed. It's like within a 4-game difference, and then after that, it's pretty low with the Pacers and the Nets. So that's crazy when you look at the Eastern Conference. The team that's in the 8th seed right now has 24 wins, and you look at the West. That's pretty close, actually. It's pretty close when you look at both sides.
Yeah, it is. And, Memphis has definitely been Memphis and Oklahoma City. Those are the two surprising teams of the West. With Memphis 2 games over 500, I think they play tonight. And then the Thunder, I would put the Thunder up there with the Raptors is maybe the 2 most overachieving teams. Now, it sounds silly coming off last year with the Raptors winning the NBA title, but losing Kawhi Leonard, and they've just ran it back with their other guys, and they've been fantastic. And then the Thunder obviously losing Paul George and Russell Westbrook, but as good as they played. I think Nick Nurse would be my pick for Coach of the Year, but Billy Donovan would probably be second at this point.
Yeah, that makes plenty of sense. I mean, obviously we're not being biased either. I mean, the way that Billy Donovan has been just distributing his players and the way they've been performing, it makes sense for him to be in argument of winning Coach of the Year.
Yeah, exactly. And he's doing it with a totally new roster. It's kind of a mishmash roster of, veterans like Chris Paul and Steven Adams and Danilo Gallinari, but also incorporating young players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and, Darius Baisley before he got hurt, Hamidou Diallo. These pieces weren't really meant to fit together for this season. This was not Oklahoma City's expectation, even within the organization. The front office wasn't putting together a team to make the playoffs this year. It's just totally been a surprise season, and everyone's, they're playing much better than everyone expected. I mean, I'm sure we could go back and listen to the podcast we did a few months ago, and we would sound silly.
Oh, exactly. That would actually, if we were to go back and if I were to clip some of that stuff, it would actually be worthy enough to be played on the Freezing Cold Takes Twitter account right now.
Yeah, exactly. It would definitely qualify for that.
And it's like another thing is, I mean, that would pretty much be for everybody. 'Cause it's like right after all that commotion was going on with the Thunder during the summertime, it just seemed like they were making so many jokes on the internet. You just saw fans from different teams just saying that, the Thunder are going to be they're going to be on the bottom of the food chain. They're going to, they were comparing them to like the Suns and Timberwolves and saying that they weren't even going to be close to making the playoff, even close to making playoff contention. But to see the way just to see this and knowing that they have a bright future ahead of them, I feel like the Thunder can be extremely dominant within this decade too. I mean, that might be a terrible take to say. I mean, it's real early right now, but it just seems like it's guaranteed knowing that they have so many first round picks. Like it would be just preposterous to think that the Thunder wouldn't be successful with those picks.
Yeah, it's still kind of it's tough to project though, because you've got to hit on those picks, and a lot of these picks, from the Clippers, their own pick for this year, they've got the Nuggets pick. Like, a lot of these picks aren't going to be super high. Maybe they'll get lucky with some. Maybe they'll package a couple together to get a couple lottery picks. But if you're going to play the game that the Thunder's playing, and it's a game that you have to play as a small market team because you're not attracting free agents, you've got to hit on those draft picks. You've got to draft well to build around guys like Gilgeous-Alexander, because, with as good as I always try to caution Thunder fans with this, with as good as they've played this year, Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, and Steven Adams, almost none of those guys are going to factor into the long-term plans. You've really got one central guy you're building around, and that's Gilgeous-Alexander. So, this year it's fun